Imagine a massive shift happening right now. A $50 trillion movement of money from one group to another. And guess what? You're probably on the side that's losing out. It's not your fault. You're not bad at handling money and you haven't made terrible choices. The real issue is the way our economic system is set up. It pulls money away from everyday people like you during tough times and piles it up for those at the top. This isn't some wild theory or secret plot. It's real history, backed by facts. Every big market crash follows the same pattern, and it always ends with the rich getting richer while the rest struggle. Let's look back at 2008. The middle class lost $16 trillion in total household value. Think about it. Homes foreclosed, jobs vanished, and people had to sell stocks in a panic just to get by. But the top 1%, they came out ahead. They scooped up foreclosed houses for 30 to 50% off their real value. They bought stocks when the S&P index hit rock bottom at 666 points. By 2013, when everything bounced back to normal levels, that money didn't go back to the people who lost it. It stayed with the elite. In just one crisis, $16 trillion moved from the bottom 90% of Americans to the top 1%. That's a huge gap created in a single event. Now, fast forward to the 2020 pandemic crash. The middle class faced disaster. 22 million people out of work in just 2 months. 60% of small businesses shut down for good. Families had to sell their investments during the March market drop just to survive. Meanwhile, billionaires added $5.5 trillion to their fortunes in that 1 year alone. Jeff Bezos gained $70 billion. Elon Musk racked up $140 billion. This was the quickest buildup of wealth at the top in modern times. And today, in 2025, Warren Buffett sits on a record $325 billion in cash, the biggest pile of ready money ever. Private equity firms have gathered $2.5 trillion in dry powder, which means cash set aside just for the next big downturn. They're not just guessing. They're ready to make huge profits from it. The average American, though? They're more in debt, more at risk, and more exposed than ever before. When the next crash hits, and all signs point to it being 6 to 18 months away, we're talking about a wealth shift of $30 trillion or more. This could be the largest in human history. But here's the key. This isn't random luck or natural market forces. It's how the system is built to work. Let me break down the process for you. I'll explain how money moves during crises, who created this setup, and why you're the one targeted. Take the 2008 crisis as an example. According to the Federal Reserve, it wiped out $16 trillion in middle-class household wealth. Families in the middle saw their net worth drop from a typical $140,000 to just $82,000. That's 41% gone. 10 million homes foreclosed, millions of jobs lost, and retirement savings cut in half. But the truth they don't highlight. That money didn't just vanish. It got transferred. By 2006, the housing market was a giant bubble. Prices had doubled in 5 years. Lenders handed out loans to anyone, no questions asked. No proof of income, no down payments, adjustable mortgages with low teaser rates that would skyrocket later. People could even claim any income they wanted on paper. It was crazy, but since everyone was profiting, no one questioned it. The rich started pulling out in 2006 and 2007. Smart hedge fund managers like John Paulson and Michael Burry studied the loan data and saw it was junk. They knew borrowers couldn't keep up once rates jumped. So they sold off properties, cut back on stocks, and moved everything to cash. But the middle class got the opposite advice. Housing prices never fall. Buy as much as you can. Use your home equity like a free ATM. Real estate agents, brokers, and advisors pushed everyone to take on more debt. The middle class maxed out right at the peak. Then, in 2007, defaults started piling up. By 2008, the whole financial world was crumbling. Families with adjustable mortgages watched their payments double or triple, from $2,000 a month to $5,000. Foreclosures hit. They lost their homes and all the value built up. Their credit was ruined for 7 years. The stock market tanked. The S&P 500 dropped from 1,500 to 666, a 57% fall. Middle-class folks saw their 401ks halved, panicked, and sold at the lowest point, locking in huge losses. Millions lost jobs. Unemployment hit 10%. When you're jobless, you have to sell assets to pay bills, dip into retirement funds early, and burn through savings. This is what we call forced liquidation. The middle class didn't choose to sell low. They were pushed by unemployment, foreclosures, margin calls, and basic survival needs. The wealthy, though, had cash ready. Warren Buffett bought into Goldman Sachs and Bank of America when no one else dared. He got special shares with 10% dividends plus warrants that locked in profits. Private equity firms snapped up whole groups of foreclosed homes. Blackstone grabbed 40,000 houses. Invitation Homes bought 80,000 at auctions for 30 to 50 cents on the dollar. Homes that families had paid $300,000 for now went for $150,000. Hedge funds picked up troubled bonds for 20 cents on the dollar, knowing they'd bounce back to full value. Then, the Federal Reserve stepped in. They cut rates to zero, printed $4 trillion, and bought up bonds and securities to steady things. That new money poured into assets, lifting stocks and real estate. By 2013, everything was back at record highs. The crisis was over for those who owned assets, but the middle class who sold low missed the comeback. They had no money left to invest. The homes they lost turned into rentals owned by private equity, with rents higher than old mortgage payments. They became permanent renters instead of owners. The stocks they dumped at 666 climbed back to 1,500 without them. That $16 trillion shifted from the middle class to the top 1%. It wasn't because the rich were smarter. It was because they had cash when others had to sell. And the Fed's money printing boosted the value of what they owned. The system is designed to move wealth this exact way. Jump to March 2020. COVID strikes. Markets plunged 35% in 3 weeks. The fastest drop ever. 22 million Americans lost jobs in 2 months. The service industry shut down. Restaurants, bars, hotels, airlines, retail, entertainment, all closed. Small businesses folded and 60% never came back. These weren't failing shops, they were solid ones crushed by lockdowns. Owners lost years of hard work in weeks. The middle class faced an instant emergency. No paychecks, but bills kept coming. What could they do? Liquidate. Sell stocks for quick cash, empty savings, tap 401ks early, and pay the penalties. This forced selling happened on a massive scale. But the wealthy weren't selling, they were buying. Billionaires added $5.5 trillion to their wealth in 2020 alone, even as a pandemic killed hundreds of thousands. Jeff Bezos made $70 billion while small stores collapsed. Elon Musk gained $140 billion. Tesla stock jumped from $400 to $3,750 in 9 months. Not because the company was suddenly 7 times better, but because the wealth shift moved middle-class assets to billionaire pockets. Mark Zuckerberg added $42 billion. Sergey Brin and Larry Page each gained $35 billion. Total billionaire wealth soared from $3 trillion to $8.5 trillion, a $5.5 trillion jump. This wasn't from creating new value. It was the system transferring money from desperate sellers to prepared buyers. When markets crashed in March, middle-class investors sold in fear. The S&P fell from 3,400 to 2,200, 35% in 3 weeks. It felt like the end of the world. Hospitals overwhelmed, death counts rising, the economy freezing. No one knew how bad it would get. The middle class dumped everything and hid in cash, terrified. But billionaires and big institutions scooped it all up. They knew the Fed would act, and they did. Jerome Powell promised unlimited money printing. They printed $6 trillion, the most ever. That cash went straight into asset prices. The Fed bought corporate bonds, junk bonds, bond funds, and mortgage securities, pumping $6 trillion into markets. Stocks fully recovered in 4 months. By August 2020, they were at new highs, even during lockdowns and mass job losses. Why? Because the Fed printed trillions and directed it to boost prices. The middle class who sold in March missed the whole rebound, stuck in cash, scared, and out of work, watching the rich get richer. The real world, where middle-class people work and live, was falling apart. But the financial world, where the wealthy keep their assets, was propped up by the Fed. The Fed doesn't care about your job. They focus on asset prices because those prices decide the wealth of the system's controllers. In 1 year, $5.5 trillion shifted, the fastest concentration of money in modern history. Same pattern as 2008, same process, and it's all by design. Every crisis follows 5 clear phases. This isn't an accident, it's planned. Phase 1, the bubble. The Federal Reserve makes borrowing easy. Interest rates drop, credit flows freely, inflating stock and real estate prices. Everyone feels rich on paper. The middle class hears, now's the time to invest. Buy stocks, buy homes, borrow more. Don't miss out. Advisors say stay fully invested. Agents push buying. Media stories hype get-rich-quick tales. Everyone's optimistic. The middle class piles in, buying at peak prices with max debt. But the wealthy exit? They spot overvalued markets, high price-to-earnings ratios, too much borrowing. They know bubbles pop, so they sell over 12 to 18 months. Buffett builds cash, selling $100 billion in stocks. Insiders sell records. Private equity raises money but holds it. Smart investors cash out while the middle class buys. End of Phase 1. Middle class overexposed, wealthy in cash. Phase 2. Tightening. The Fed hikes rates. Borrowing gets costly, debt weighs heavy. Mortgages reset higher, companies refinance at steep costs. Prices stall, excitement fades, cracks show. But the middle class ignores the warning. They're told it's just a normal dip. They hold or even buy more, averaging down, trusting recovery. The wealthy? They build bets against the market. Put options, VIX calls, credit swaps, positioning to profit from the fall. Phase 3. The crash. Something snaps. A bank fails, a company collapses, a shock hits. The trigger doesn't matter. The system is overleveraged. It cascades. Markets drop 30 to 50%. Real estate tanks. Credit dries up. Banks stop lending. Forced selling starts. Middle-class families with margin debt face calls to add cash or sell. They can't, so brokers sell. Families lose jobs, can't pay mortgages. Foreclosures. Panic sells everything to stop losses. The system forces low-price sales through debt, fear, unemployment. The wealthy, with cash from Phase 1, buy it all. Phase 4. The transfer. Middle class dumps assets. Wealthy snaps them up. Foreclosed homes at 30 to 50% off. Private equity buys in bulk. Stocks 50 to 60% below peaks. Buffett grabs top companies at bargain valuations. Distressed businesses for pennies. They set terms since they're the only ones with money. This is the big shift. Wealth from forced sellers to cash buyers. Assets pile up at low prices, held for 5 to 10 years. Phase 5. Recovery. The Fed always intervenes. Rates to zero. More printing. Trillions pumped in. Money lifts asset prices. Stocks climb 30 to 50% in the first year, then more. Real estate recovers in 2 to 5 years. Wealthy who bought low double or triple their money, sometimes 5 to 10 times. Middle class misses it, still recovering, no funds to invest. Transferred wealth stays at the top. Inequality grows. This isn't free markets, it's engineered. The Fed blows bubbles in Phase 1, bursts them in Phase 2, forces middle class sales in Phase 3, enables cheap buys in Phase 4, and reinflates for the wealthy in Phase 5. Cycle repeats, 1987, 2000, 2008, 2020. And it's repeating now. We're late in Phase 2, nearing Phase 3. The 2020 to 2022 bubble. Fed zero rates, $6 trillion printed, assets soared. S&P doubled from 2,200 to 4,800 in under 2 years. Real estate up 40%, homes selling way over asking. Middle class invested at highs, max debt. Household debt at records, $38 trillion in margin loans. More leverage than 2008. Fully in at the peak. Wealthy exited 2023. 2024. Buffett sold $100 billion, now $325 billion cash. Bezos sold $13 billion in Amazon. Zuckerberg dumped Meta shares, insiders selling like 2007. Smart money out. Phase 1 done, Phase 2 since 2022. Fed rates from 0 to 5.25% in 18 months. Fastest ever. Mortgages tripled, housing unaffordable. Corporate debt costs soared. Commercial real estate at 3% now faces 8 to 9% refinancing. Impossible. Defaults rising. Brookfield walked away from $1 billion towers. $2 trillion in mortgages mature 2025. 2026. 40% can't refinance. $800 billion in defaults. Regional banks hold them, already failing. Silicon Valley Bank's second biggest ever signature. First Republic, New York community nearly gone. Unemployment at 4%, no recession yet. But when it hits, dozens fail. Middle class stays calm, buying dips like 2007. Phase 3. 6 to 18 months away. Indicators, yield curve inverted 2022, now normal. Predicts recessions with 12 to 24-month lag. We're at 18 months. Buffett indicator 185% danger over 120%. Commercial defaults in 2025. Bank clusters in 2026. Unemployment to 1.215%, 7 to 8 million jobs lost. Forced selling everywhere. Real estate, banks, debt, over-leveraged consumers. Crash 5.0. 60% down, banks fail. FDIC overwhelmed. Real estate collapses. Middle class panics, sells low. Phase 4, biggest transfer ever. Middle class holds $50 trillion in stocks. 50. 60%. Drop means $25, 30 trillion lost. but it shifts to Buffett's $325 billion, private equity's $2.5 trillion, hedge funds shorting for profits. They buy homes for 30 cents on the dollar, stocks half price, businesses cheap. Hold 5-10 years, double wealth. $30 trillion or more moves. Phase 5. Fed prints $10 20 trillion, reinflates. Wealthy richer, gap wider. Why this way? System favors them. Fed created in 1913 by banks like J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller. Secret meeting on Jekyll Island designed it, lobbied Congress. Claims to stabilize prices and jobs, but really protects financial elite. Bails out banks in crises. 2008 saved all majors with trillions, but not homeowners 10 million foreclosures. Why? Banks control it. Fed serves them. Prints to boost assets when wealthy threatened. Every crisis, 1987 $20 billion, 2008 $4 trillion, 2020 $6 trillion. Assets recover because owners fund campaigns, sit on Fed boards. Regulatory capture, middle class powerless. In resets, you bear the burden. Lose job, home, sell low. Wealthy buy cheap. Not a flaw. The plan. 2008 example. Bailed banks, not homeowners. Could have bought mortgages to keep families and homes cheaper but didn't. Prevents transfers. Let foreclosures happen. Private equity buys discounts. Designed for transfer. 2020. $6 trillion printed. Not to jobless or businesses some $200 checks. PPP. Went to markets. Bonds, junk bonds, pumping assets. Benefits wealthy top 10% own 89% stocks. Top 1% 54%. Stocks up 40%. Billionaires gain $5.5 trillion. Middle class gets one-time $200. System works. Crisis forces middle class sales. Wealthy buys. Fed reinflates. Gap grows. Success for them. Crash coming 6-18 months. Real estate defaults 2025 to 2026. $2 trillion unrefinanced. Cascades. Banks fail in groups. FDIC swamped. Depositors lose. Stocks down 5.060%. $30 trillion evaporates, but transfers to Buffett. Private equity. Hedge funds. Your home. Stocks 401k sold cheap. They hold. Fed prints $20 trillion. Prices rise. Your loss is their gain. $50 trillion shift. You're targeted. But you can change sides. See it coming. Position differently. First, hold 2.030% cash or treasuries. Miss some gains if markets rise 6-12 months, but have power when crash hits. Buy at 5.060% off. Better than losing 50% with no cash. Be the buyer when others forced to sell. Second, get protection. Buy put options on the S&P SPY, expiring 6-12 months, strikes 1.020% below now. Costs 1 to 3% of portfolio. If 50% drop, returns 5-10 times. If no crash, lose premium. Insurance. Bill Ackman turned $27 million to $2.6 billion in 2020 this way. 96x return. Funds bottom buys. Wealthy profit down and up. Do it smaller scale. Most important, when crash hits. Markets down 50%, unemployment 12%, banks failing weekly, everyone terrified, media doomsaying, emotions scream sell. Ignore. Prepare a list of strong companies. Apple, Microsoft, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Visa. Solid finances, low debt, key products, lasting edges. Buy at bargain prices when fear peaks. Don't time the exact low. Impossible. When down 5.060%, start buying gradually over weeks/months. That's phase 4, the transfer time. With cash, protection payouts, mental strength to buy in panic, you become the buyer, not the seller. Only way to avoid targeting. Pattern clear, process proven. Every big crash, 1929, 1987, 2000, 2008, 2020. Same phases, same shift, happening now. 2025. Wealthy out, $325 billion cash, $2.5 trillion dry powder, insider sales record. Positioned. Middle class in deep $40 trillion debt, peak exposure. $50 trillion about to move from sellers to buyers. Biggest ever. Question. Will you spot it, act different, or join millions losing all, selling low, handing wealth to the ready? System extracts from you in crises. But awareness, pattern knowledge gives you a shot. A shot to dodge the target, or even flip to the winning side. The transfer is on its way. The real question is, which side will you end up on? To wrap this up, let's talk about how you can spot the signs and take control. The wealthy aren't just lucky, they prepare ahead. They build cash reserves during the bubble phase, exit before the crash, and use tools like options to protect and profit. You can learn from that on a smaller scale. Start by tracking key indicators. Watch the yield curve, the Buffett indicator, insider selling, and commercial real estate trends. These aren't crystal balls, but they signal when phase 3 is near. Remember, the system rewards those with capital and courage. If you hold cash now, you'll have buying power later. If you buy protection, you'll hedge against losses. And when fear grips everyone, that's your cue to invest wisely. Don't let emotions or media hype drive you. Study the history, understand the phases, and position yourself as the buyer, not the victim. History shows this cycle repeats, but knowledge lets you break free. The $50 trillion shift is coming. Make sure it's not coming from you. Stay informed, stay prepared, and take charge of your financial future. Thanks for watching. What side will you choose? Let me know in the comments.